Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Help on the Way podcast, where we will be speaking about shortly our week's show, which is September 22 of 1993. This is the Grateful Dead at Madison Square Garden in New York City, New York. I'm your host, Fig, here with my co-host, Knob. Say hello, Knob.
Hello, Knob.
And we have a special guest this week. This is Do Roller. Say hello to the fans out there, Do Roller.
Hey, y'all. I be rolling away the dew, you know? Just like in Franklin's Tower.
Hell yeah. We have a Franklin's Tower that starts our week's show. Well, I guess ends the first kind of trilogy of songs on this week's show, which we will talk about in a little bit. What we're going to do before we get into that, and we have just a little bit of Channel 6 news for y'all out there, is we're going to talk to Do Roller. Do Roller comes to us kind of from an interesting background. I did a podcast with Do Roller kind of that I fell into in my role as a moderator of the Brian Eno subreddit. So I am a moderator of the Grateful Dead subreddit and of the Brian Eno subreddit. My parents are thrilled, and it's on my resume. Don't worry. We did a podcast about Brian Eno's ambient series, which we will link to in the description of this podcast. And I think it came out pretty well. It was actually a very fun discussion. Absolutely. And Do Roller was present. And of course, I talked about the Grateful Dead because I plugged the podcast, and there are some connections, between ambient music and Grateful Dead. A lot of it was talking about space. Do Roller started talking about Darkstar, and I got the idea of, hey, if next time we have a Darkstar on the show, I asked Do Roller if he'd be interested in coming on the show and talk about it. And background, Do Roller is not versed in the Grateful Dead. Much more of a electronic music, ambient head. So we normally start our conversations asking the co-hosts what got you on the bus, and what that means in kind of the Deadhead world is like, how did you get to be a Deadhead, or how did you get into the Grateful Dead's music? But I know you're not quite a Deadhead, or at least not yet. So I'll kind of open it up and ask, what got you into music generally? Were you always into electronic music? Did you kind of fall into electronic music? What do you know about the Grateful Dead? Just kind of general music talk. Take it away, Do Roller.
I've been more than willing to also, kind of get out of the way with like how I originally got into the Grateful Dead, but let's let it roll as I go.
Let it roll away.
Okay, so originally I used to like this was like when I was 7-8 years old. I was hooked to the radio, always listening to whatever sort of 80s, 90s, 2000s rock hits were playing on there. And then I eventually found out about Spotify, decided to download it. I've been using it for at least 5 to 6, actually more than 6 years now. And that's how I've been mainly discovering a lot of music. Originally, I was just like a big classic rock guy, started diverging. Then I eventually became a metalhead, and I started getting into more extreme forms of metal. So we're talking more on the death metal, grindcore side of things. And then, after some time, I just kind of expanded my taste a little bit more outside of metal. But it was really 2 years ago over at a Rob Zombie show that I got into for free. It was Rob Zombie, Alice Cooper, Ministry, and Filter. And Ministry set rocked my ass off so hard that I decided to get into industrial music. And that's where I really started diverging into more experimental forms of music. I got into Ministry, and I got hooked on 9 Inch Nails as well. And then got into other industrial metal, then looked into earlier industrial. That's where I saw Throbbing Gristle, Nurse of Thune. Of course, I was familiar with some of these names beforehand. But I just wasn't too into it. And then with those acts like Nurse with Wound and even White House, That's where I got into noise music and, of course, other experimental music. Now I'm a big post-punk kind of guy. Like Killing Joke. If anybody here recognizes my profile picture, that's Bright Green Field by Squid. Absolute recent classic album of theirs for sure. Highly recommended if you want some dance punk with a bit of a jazzy edge. But now, regarding just generally experimental music, I eventually got on the Brian Eno train, and I've went through his 4 ambient albums quite a while back. And when my friend Audrey here, who is the host of the podcast that me and Fig managed to get on for the Eno episode, I was just super duper excited for it, and I was happy to be able to talk to other people who at least were aware and were somewhat experts in what was being talked about. Now, as for the Grateful Dead themselves, when I was younger and still using Spotify, and I was still a bit of a classic rock head, I decided to check out Aoxomoxoa out of all albums because of that album cover. It looks super crazy with the colors and the skull just being just super distorted, and it looked like it was reflected in on itself. I decided to get into it. I remember I only heard it once, but it was super solid. I wasn't too into psychedelic music. Now I'm sort of trying to get into it. But Aoxomoxoa definitely impressed me. And after I got into King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, I don't know if they can see my tag here on Discord, but I got into King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard from a college buddy of mine who was like a big Giz head. And I'm sure some of you viewers might know at least a friend or two that is into King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. They share quite a few parallels with the Grateful Dead.
And they come up a lot on the subreddit, and I'm sure there's a lot of fans out there that are into the Giz. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure they'll enjoy this then. So I got into King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, went through all of their studio discography, and then went through every single one of their live bootlegs up to the 2024 tour. I haven't done the new 2025 ones yet. Those are like 6 hours long each, and I don't want to sacrifice myself too much right now when I'm trying to discover more new music. But that's besides the point. I managed to just basically go out of my way to check out these live shows of theirs that they basically officially but unofficially recorded for the fans. And that's what sort of got me on a bit of a jam band train. I'd heard my fair share of Fish before. It wasn't really that much for me. For me, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard just was so much more impressive, especially with how much more multi-genre they really were. And those live shows really showed their eclecticness. Could you say it like that or whatever?
Yeah. Works.
Those live shows were utterly impressive, and I definitely had some favorites. I wish I could have gone to their Miami show last year, because said buddy in question was able to go, and they said it was like absolutely crazy, basically injecting metal wherever they possibly could into their jams. So you have like this weird brand of super duper heavy psych that the band has going on there. Absolutely crazy. Check out Live in Miami 2024 when you can. Available on all streaming platforms and also on their Bandcamp. You could download it for free. And I think I've seen some advertisements of some online stores trying to do vinyl pressings of the show. So do look into that if possible. Highly recommend. As for
after Aoxomoxoa, you got into Blues for Allah, right?
Yes. I was asking my friend here actually about that, because King Gizzard is a psychedelic band. So of course I want to try getting into more psychedelic music. I also got into Les Rallies Denudes. Absolutely great Japanese band. If you know them, you are a real one. And it was this weird form of experimental psychedelia that just got me kind of hooked. because of King Gizzard and I knew that the Grateful Dead were like the godfathers of all of this. So I decided to check out. I was going on Rate Your Music, trying to look at their bolded albums. Yes, I know I'm a Rate Your Music user, but whatever.
No, that's cool.
But I was going through their discography. I saw that Blues for Allah was bolded on there, and the cover looks super fucking cool with the skeleton playing the fiddle.
Classic.
So of course, and he's got the crazy old man hair there. So I had to check it out. I went through it. Absolutely solid album. Way better than Oxomoxoa for sure.
Yeah, and it kind of shows, what the Dead can do in many different genres. Because, as you say, Oxomoxoa is much more of a psych rock album, but by Blues for Allah, we're doing experimental sounds and jazz and fusion and but also some classic songs, which we'll get into in just a bit of a moment here. Wanted to ask you, as someone who is a novice, or Nob, do you want to chime in? Do you have questions, or do you want to do the next?
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't you go on?
I'm
Refrain from trading blows on the fish stuff.
No, it's okay.
That's a production note.
No, that's fine. Not everything's for everybody, and I can live with that. No, it's always funny how our little.
Sorry to interrupt. It's just that fish were still solid, but it's just that they couldn't really compare to King Gizzard or the Grateful Dead for that matter here. So
they do their own thing.
I haven't heard any of their live jams myself, but that's gonna be something that takes a lot of time. All right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of music out there, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
So before you were into the Grateful Dead, like, what were sort of your before you got yourself into them, what were sort of your notions or ideas of the Grateful Dead?
Oh, I remember this was when I was like 14, 15, and I was on Twitter just kind of talking about music, and I saw this guy post like, what's one band that you can't really understand the fans of? Or liking that band, and I said the Grateful Dead, and of course stupid me didn't realize that these guys had some killer jam sessions at this point. I did not have the maturity level to recognize that, and then a bunch of deadheads were replying to me, it's because you're too foolish to understand. because they're just so damn good you can't understand their music. And I basically got kind of clowned on, and of course I deserved it. But now that before going through Moxo, I did have that in mind, but I realized that what I said there was something stupid. So I had to make do and just reverse this in a way.
Yeah.
Reverse my notions. And Oxomoxoa definitely helped with that. Blues for Allah basically wiped it away completely.
Yeah. And I think the more live music you listen to, it's funny. The way there's so many ways of accessing their music, and especially with the internet. I've very rarely listened to their studio stuff. Very, very rarely. And if I do, it's going to be Shakedown Street, which is not even, their best album, but it's just kind of fun for me to listen to. But there's so much live music out there. And the thing about the Grateful Dead clearly we have a podcast that's dedicated to this aspect of the Grateful Dead, is that the music is out there and it's all accessible on the archive on archive.org. So it's interesting for me to hear how other people kind of access their music, because it's just so different from my experience. And I also think that what you said about what your answer to that query about what's fan base you can't get into, I think you were kind of like repeating a trope. I don't really, whether or not you felt that way or not, I don't know, but I do think that your answer is something that people would want to hear, or kind of like an echo of something that's out there on the internet.
Yeah, it felt kind of parroted.
Yeah, yeah, but I think that's that's definitely something that's out there,
Yeah,
and it's good to overcome that and kind of access that
yeah. Jam bands
or
aren't usually
challenge
for
that, I should say. Go ahead.
jam bands aren't usually for everybody, but
Right.
once you at least take a moment, and if you and have some patience to maybe listen to a studio album or a live performance from them, or even just a single jam for a particular song, you can see and at least appreciate the beauty that comes with doing these jam sessions, because they do take quite a bit of skill.
Hell yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, the same way prog rock is with its extended suites, multi-part
Right.
songs, like I don't know, 2112 or Close to the Edge. The same thing
Yeah.
applies here. It's only just more improvisation, not necessarily set parts.
Yeah. What did you know about Darkstar? Because I remember on the on the Brian Eno podcast, you specifically mentioned Darkstar as something that you had known that they did. What was your kind of preconceived notions about Darkstar? Because we feature
Oh,
Darkstar tonight in the September 1993 show.
oh, it was more so about the fact that there was a Plunderphonics album called Grave Folded that basically just sampled Grateful Dead live performances, and most
Mm-hmm.
of it really coming from Darkstar.
Hmm.
That's what I was really talking about. I don't know if any viewers watching this, um, or listeners are are aware of this, but I believe that basically shows off slivers of that super duper experimental side of the band.
Very cool. Okay, so Knob, any final questions before we do a quick Channel 6 and jump into the show? I think we've kind of teased this 1993 show a couple times.
I think that's about.
Yeah. All right, Do Roller. Thanks so much for joining us. We are going to Do Roller's going to stick around and talk about some of his thoughts about September 23rd, 1993, right after Knob gives us an update on some Channel 6 news. Bobby played the Royal Albert Hall in London,
Albert
England.
Hall. Yes, Bob Weir and the Wolf Brothers, though not with the usual Wolf Pack that have been playing with them, but they went to play with the London Symphony Orchestra at the Royal Albert Hall, and I have not gotten the chance to listen to the full shows. I've listened to bits and pieces. It generally sounds good. What I've heard is that there were probably a couple of songs towards the beginning that were a little bit off, but eventually Bob and the band and the orchestra all got in the groove, and by the end it was a real fun show. So I am excited to give that whole thing a listen at some point soon.
Yeah, and I'm just happy that Bobby's getting his flowers.
Yeah.
To be playing at the Royal Albert Hall in London with an entire symphony behind you. I know he's been doing symphonic shows as well, but like this is pretty cool.
It's been,
I think,
there's been
yeah, go
so
ahead.
many of these, jam band guys play with orchestra shows, Warren Haynes and Trey and all of them. So it's nice that Bobby gets his own go at it.
Yeah, and absolutely well deserved. A
Except
little
for
bit
the
of
ones last year were really strong.
down in Washington.
Yeah, when he was doing it
Yeah,
with the yeah, I had a very nice time listening to those shows. Anyway,
some Fig history. My first show was Weird Al Yankovic. I will take that to the grave.
yeah, me too. I know
Um,
we bonded over this before.
but my first classic rock show was what is going on? My computer just is now asking me to prepare for Windows 10 end of support, and it's like a full screen warning.
Okay.
Oh boy. All right, I'm back. So thank
Are
you.
you properly warned that Windows 10 is doing whatever it said it was going to do? I wasn't listening.
I'm warned. I have no idea what
All
I'm
right,
going to do.
great.
I'm just going to panic is all I can do because I don't think my machine can handle Windows 11. But that's besides the point. My first classic rock show was Roger Daltrey with the London Symphony Orchestra. My aunt took me, and I think that was maybe the first time I smelled marijuana.
Okay. My first time smelling marijuana was at when the Who were playing their Quadrophenia tour in 2013.
I find that hard to believe, knowing Knob's
Well,
dad.
it was the first time I could identify that's the smell of weed, not that's the
That
smell
smells
of
like
the
daddy.
basement. Yeah, you know, it was its own little thing in my mind.
It
I
smells like
saw
the
one of those
basement.
Prey Orchestra shows last year. It was very interesting. When they were in sync, they were really in sync. And sometimes you got the impression that the musicians were not that into what they were playing.
Yeah.
But it was
It's a
cool.
little tough because the Grateful Dead's music is so improvisational, and then you add, I don't know how many the orchestra is,
Yeah.
a full orchestra or a half orchestra or whatever, and you got to stay on, within kind of the set piece. So it's a little different. Do Roller wants to talk a little bit about King Giz. Back to Do Roller.
Yes, because I now that you guys are talking about these orchestral shows, that does remind me that King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard recently put out their album Phantom Island, which is basically a super symphonic orchestral album that they recorded with an orchestra, and I think they have and are already planning to do some orchestra-backed shows this summer and onwards for the rest of this year, if I remember correctly. So do be on the lookout for that, to any fellow Gizheads or listening, watching here. Just saying.
Yeah, thanks. Knob has King Gizzard have they kind of I know the similarities, and I know that they're extremely prolific, or the similarities with improvisational, jam band music. But like, have they crossed into the Grateful Dead world that you know? Have they played any festivals or something where those two worlds have combined, to your knowledge?
They're not a jam band. They don't want to be in that world. They
Interesting.
want to do their own thing. In the last couple of years, Deadheads and Fish fans have gotten really into King Gizzard. Trey is a huge Gizhead, and that kind of has led a lot of Fish fans into that world, as well as in 2022, I think, somewhere in the last few years. They put out a couple of albums that were very jam band oriented. The Fishing for Fishies album and the Changes, all sort of brought over folks that were more into that style of music. But they've never, none of the King Gizzard guys have ever sat in with Phil and Friends or played Dead tunes, to my knowledge. They very much are doing their own thing while still carrying that spirit of improvisation.
Yeah, I've checked on setlist.fm before. I did not see a single mention of the Grateful Dead in there.
Yeah.
Wow. They're Australian, right?
Yes, they are Australian.
So
Actually,
I do think I know there's Deadheads in Australia. I do think that the Grateful Dead are an American institution in the sense that it resonates with Americans perhaps more than with other folks from around the world. That's my headcanon. I believe that to be true. I don't know. It's not quantifiable, but it makes sense to me.
Actually, a bit of a personal, not like personal, of course, but my dad, when he was a Navy team's insignia, actually had the Dead Skull on it. Funnily enough.
Oh, sick.
I think he has a patch of it somewhere. I don't know if I could. Well, I'll see if I could pull it up later and show a picture.
Yeah, it'd be cool to see
the thing, but it definitely resonates with American way that even the army fucking loves them.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, which I think what makes what Bobby did in London even that much cooler, because I mean I think that the amount of folks to go see Bob Weir at the Royal Albert Hall in London is probably a lot less than people in New York City, for example, playing Radio City or whatnot. So cool. All right, so let's jump into the weekly show. This is September 22nd, 1993. This is in New York, at Madison Square Garden. Kind of cool. Last week we were talking about a Felt Forum show from 1971 that the Grateful Dead played in Madison Square Garden, but kind of at a smaller theater. Now they're playing the big show in 1993 a completely different band, obviously. They're not on the ascendant portion of their career. They also have some guest musicians on this show. It features very prominently saxophonist David Murray, who I didn't really know prior to this, sinking my teeth into this show. Nob, anything for you about David Murray before we jump in?
No, he's only a name I know through Grateful Dead circles. I must admit some ignorance of.
No doubt. I mean, it's definitely a jazz saxophonist who was sitting in tonight on some of these songs. So the way we're going to do it is Nam and I will do our typical rundowns, and then Do Roller is going to talk about some of the Blues for Allah stuff, and maybe Dark Star and Drums in Space, and really whatever Do Roller wants to talk about. So first set starts with Help Slip Frank. We get a New Minglewood Blues, a Ramble on Rose, When I Paint My Masterpiece, for the Bob Dylan lovers out there, and then we end set 1 with Birdsong. Nob, why don't you take it away?
Sure. I'd love to provide a little bit of context for this show historically, because it is the last night of a 6-night run at Madison Square Garden. There was one night off in the middle, so basically a straight week of Madison Square Garden shows. But I just want to briefly look at the schedule for the 1993 fall tour, where they played 3 nights in Richfield, then 1 night off, 3 nights at the Spectrum, 1 night off, 6 nights at the Garden with 1 night off in the middle, then 1 more night off, then 6 nights at the Boston Garden. That's 18 shows in the span of a month.
Wow.
Wild. Crazy. Sometimes the band sounds a little tired, and I'd like to think that that's why. I think that's a big part of it. There's probably more to it. It was just nuts. So anyway, once we get to the music, I think the show is good but not great. It rarely rises above pretty good, but I thought it was still pretty good. So that's something. The Help, it's got good energy. The band is playing well. It occasionally gets a little busy, but only occasionally. I gotta say, I don't like how Jerry or Bob's guitars sound on this one.
What was up with Jerry's guitar? Why did it sound like an acoustic guitar?
Well, that's Lightning Bolt. That's the guitar that Jerry started playing in '93 and would play through the rest of most of the rest of his time.
Okay, that's interesting. So, because that is like when I think of the mid '90s sound, I think of that sound. I didn't realize that it was the guitar Lightning Bolt.
Yes,
I also thought that maybe that tone was a little bit more in the forefront this evening.
Absolutely. Yeah, Lightning Bolt, it can be a very hit or miss guitar. It is specifically designed, and Jerry really liked it because it sounded more like an acoustic guitar. I will talk about it later, but on a song like Lazy River Road, or even When I Paint My Masterpiece here in set 1, I think that it can be really great. There are some songs where I don't think it shines as much, and I would say that Help Slip is definitely one of those songs. And Bob's distortion tone isn't quite doing it for me, but I think he'll settle into it as the set goes on. The Slipknot is okay. I am generally liking the groove. The Jerry solo is a little too dissonant and aimless for me, but once he finds a melody to play with, I think it gets quite good as he messes up going back into Slipknot itself. The Franklins is fine. It grooves nicely. Jerry sounds tired. This is the first song that really stood out to me in that way. But I think he plays some fun solos. It's got a nice groove. It is solid. It is pretty good. Minglewood, similarly, everything's right, but nothing's amazing. I know Dan Healy will later get fired for this, but I think he was correct to bury Bob's slide solo in the mix on this one. But that's just me being a little snarky. But I think Bob sounds good singing it, which is nice. To me, Ramble on Rose is where things really kick in. It's the first song that Jerry sounds like on for. But I also have to throw in the caveat that like the middle section just kind of sounds silly. I was listening to
Yeah.
this with my girlfriend,
Good
and
point.
she observed that it kind of sounds like the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band movie from the 70s, where everything is all bleep blorps and early synthesizers, and it's oh man.
Moogsploitation?
One more time?
Like Moogsploitation? We're talking
Yes.
Exploitation.
Yes,
Like-
absolutely.
like Muck Garson's Plantasia, but just with a little bit of mushroom LCD.
Yes, this is what every old Doctor Who episode sounds like. And I
I mean,
think
this was the
Jerry-
Ramble on Rose we're talking about?
the Ramble, yeah, the middle section of the Ramble on Rose, I felt like
Oh.
with Jerry playing the MIDI trumpet and Vince going
the
really
MIDI.
hard on his.
There were some
his
bad MIDI
synth
choices tonight.
Yes, we'll get to it later, but I'm especially baffled why Jerry chooses to play MIDI saxophone when
Yes!
someone is playing actual
Yes.
goddamn saxophone
Yes.
on the stage.
Yes.
At one
I
point,
wrote
somewhere in
that
set
down.
2, he plays a MIDI flute, and I think that's nice. I think that's an interesting contrasting sound, but the saxophone was crazy. Anyway,
Yeah, like you have a world-class saxophonist on stage with a world-class instrument, and you're just like, but
you
look what I can do on guitar.
have a real saxophone, and then you're going to stand there and go, bwah, bwah, bwah. It's just, again, some of these MIDI sounds work, but I would not say that the trumpet here is one of them. One of my notes was they're playing really well, but it sounds like that. And that's sort of my takeaway with a lot of songs tonight. Masterpiece, I think, is good, I'll say. I thought it had a really great groove. And the solo section is probably the most beautiful playing in all of set 1. And then I really like the bird song. I think even before David Murray comes in, the jam sounds really great. Phil is playing some really active and weird bass lines that keeps this thing really grooving. But I like when David Murray comes in there. I think the jam gets better the more it goes on. This is definitely a jam that is growing and growing and growing, which isn't true of every jam tonight, but I think is really true here. And I think it lands really nicely back into Birdsong. Again, we got Jerry with some scratchy vocals, but I would say that this Birdsong is more good than not. Yeah, I don't know. I like
preponderantly good.
Yeah, it's fine. It's
It's
pretty good, and that
it's a
swell.
bee birdsong. That's what the bee's for in birdsong.
True.
I'll jump in. I'd like to say some good things. I don't have much on set 1. Oh, what I will say is there is a Tobin Matrix. I would actually, and usually I go for the Matrix recordings out there. I would actually go for the Miller. I had a better listening experience on the Miller soundboard that's out there. Jumping into the songs, Help on the Way, just what an opener. It was just so dramatic and cinematic. I just kind of closed my eyes and could just imagine, the break between bands and like the lights go down and they open to that in Madison Square Garden, just what that must have felt like. And it was just so awesome to hear. This one was played very well. Jerry doesn't sound too bad, but I like Nob. Thank you for the context on this show. He sounded tired.
Yeah.
And I think that is a theme of the night. Not just with him, but I think with a lot of the musicians, even Bobby, which is rare. He's kind of back in the mix with his vocals. Like he can't project through the mix. And I think he really needed Vince's voice to help boost him up throughout the show. Slipknot was a very moody jam, tight as hell. And Franklin's Tower, a nice pulse to this one. Nice callback to the end of Slipknot to end things. Minglewood Blues, I said, was good. Ramble on Rose, I could tell Jerry was having fun. You're right. This was a bit jokier than usual for Ramble on Rose. When I paint my masterpiece, I just wrote goddamn Phil. Phil was very prominently playing. Phil Lesh, the bassist, was really either high in the mix or just very prominent tonight. Two, in my opinion, some mixed results. I liked what he was doing in Masterpiece. Some of the jam stuff, it just sounded like it was just Phil playing for Phil, which we'll get into. Birdsong. I wrote that this one sounds nice, but the saxophone just kicks it into another level. I liked Phil's octave melodies throughout, just playing a lot of octave rhythms and melodies. I thought it was interesting. This was a 13-minute Bird song, but I didn't really think they had much to say besides, hey, we have a saxophonist on this one.
Yeah, I'll give
There
you
was
that.
a middle section. What'd you say?
Oh, I just said, yeah, I'll give you that.
Okay. Yeah, there was a middle section where things broke down, and I thought it was going to go somewhere, but even that ultimately did not go anywhere. So, and that is kind of my theme of the night on this saxophonist, which we'll get into with set two. Set two starts with easy answers. We got a lazy river road. We got an estimated profit into a dark star, just a 7-minute dark star. First verse only. Drums in space brings us to a wharf rat. We get a throwing stones, love light, and my favorite song of the night, I fought the law. I'll keep talking. I have a little bit more to say about set two. Easy answers, kind of a timid version of a song that actually needs some zip and some zest and some moxie to work its best on, or even on the best of terms. Lazy River Road, I have nothing for. Estimated profit. Oh, I would love to know Knob's reaction of Bobby doing the hey, and then the sax responding in kind in saxophone language.
Oh, that kind of reminds me of that. What was that one? Yankee Rose by David Lee Roth, where you have the guy and the guitar talking to each other. That's what it kind of reminded me of.
I liked it. It's just I know that's one of the things that rubs Knob the wrong way sometimes. Oh, and then I wrote, I'm not sure why Jerry felt the need to emulate a saxophone on his MIDI when there's an actual saxophonist on the stage. However, the best part about Estimated Profit was the drop into Darkstar, which was that drop into Darkstar was just sublime. One of the reasons I keep coming back to this music. Unfortunately, the jam doesn't really go anywhere. Phil is highest in the mix and just seems to be playing for the sake of playing. No real listening happening on this one. I wonder if it didn't work out due to Murray on sax, due to Dave Murray on sax, where it just maybe didn't work. Maybe the chemistry wasn't there for an interesting Darkstar. We get into drums in space. Space had more squeaky sax. So I wrote squealy. I wanted to write squealy sax, but my autocorrect changed it to squeaky sax. And I was like, yeah, it was squeaky. But it was also squealy. And it was just a lot of that through the rest of the night. This is in space. There was a bit of a crescendo that worked with all the different sounds, but that's about it. Wharf Rat, finally Jerry sounds full-throated as the Wharf Rat. The sax really brought things to another level again. I'm not usually a fan of the squeaky sax, but it did work tonight on this Wharf Rat. It added to the depravity of the character and of the song in general. Throwing Stones was topical, as it typically is, but specifically for the news this week. Again, though, this was kind of flat and listless, which, again, maybe still topical for things that are going on in the world. Again, I didn't need the squealy sax on this one. And it's also clear that David Murray didn't really know the song. It has a lot of different changes that, if you're not in the band, you maybe don't know it. Love Light, I liked. So there was a harmonica player, a mouth harp player, James Cotton, who was on Throwing Stones and Love Light. I really liked what he was doing in Love Light. I said, I'm here for it. And then I fought the law. The band just turned into the Who. They turned it I was like, wait, is this the Who now? The intro sounded like Pictures of Lily. A power pop masterpiece from the mid 60s. And that was how they ended the show. I will kick it over to Knob, and then we will get into Do Roller's thoughts.
Oh yeah. Sure. Yeah, this second set has its ups and downs for sure. Again, my answer tends to be pretty good, not great, but pretty good. Easy Answers, yeah, is well played, but lacks energy. Ultimately, the song still sounds like that. I think the jam is quite nice, but it doesn't really do anything crazy or out there. We then get to Lazy River Road, which, to me, if I had to name Lightning Bolt's signature song, it is Lazy River Road. I don't know what it is for the other Jerry guitars. Please debate that in the comments. But
I like that.
I think Lightning Bolt
an interesting
is Lazy River Roads.
That's an interesting topic for debate.
Yeah.
I love that.
We'll bring it up in the future. Yeah, it's a nice and mellow rendition. Jerry definitely starts mumbling through some lyrics at times. It is a song that is improved by the saxophone. I think it's a very nice touch. I think what Murray is playing is quite subtle overall, and I think it really shines with this song. We then get to Estimated. I think it has excellent energy. Estimated is honestly one of my highlights this evening. I thought the two jams were really impressively different. The first jam being in that melodic, euphoric world of the chorus, and the other grooving and dissonant like the verse. And I think Murray was really excellently able to contrast his two solos here. There are some songs where I feel like he starts to fall on his familiar tricks, but this is a song where I can really hear him listening and doing something with it, which is great. The band starts to really bring it in the second jam, wired up by his weird and dissonant solo. Yeah, the low point of this jam is definitely when Jerry plays the MIDI saxophone, but eventually he gives up on it and it gets good again, and that's great. It transitions really excellently into Dark Star, which it is just kind of a nothing of a Dark Star. It's Jerry's weakest vocal of the night, and when we get to the jam, it just kind of moves along in that basic Dark Star groove before it just kind of peters out into drums. Drums I wrote is a lot of bump bums, and then it's a lot of bleep bloops. Lots of fun effects from Mickey, a lot of electronic sampling and MIDI horns. It's an interesting experiment. It doesn't always work for me as music, but it's a trip in and of itself. The Wharf Rat I really liked. Everyone worked together really well to tell the story. This is a song where Lightning Bolt shines. It's able to get really quiet and the whole band along with it. I think the jam gets really weird when the saxophone comes back in, and I think that's great. They just kind of take this song on a whole big journey and a slightly different one than usual. And then we get a nice Throwing Stones. I thought it was very fun, able to get really righteously angry and then channeling that anger in a fun dance party. I feel like earlier Throwing Stones tend to just save the jam for the end of the song. I thought it was very smart of them to put the jam in the middle of the song and then build up the energy again on that second bridge, the shipping powders back and forth section. Turn on Your Love Light is nice. James Cotton shows up on harmonica. He is great. That Love Light is as good as it is exactly because of how well he is playing the harmonica. Because Bob, there's no other way to say it, is screaming like a Muppet by the end of this Love Light. It's a lot of... it's not a sound I would describe as pleasant. But the band is playing quite well on this Love Light, and it's a nice way to close it out. And then the encore is I Fought the Law, which, is pretty fun. It's definitely vocally where everybody is sort of the most in sync, and it's mostly there in terms of the band. At one point, the drummers met by trying to do this triplet thing that nobody else is going for, and also the drummers don't nail themselves, and it throws it off for a second, but they quickly recover, and it's a nice, fun way to close out 6 nights at the Garden.
It's a good point. It's good context. Okay, Do Roller. So, why don't you just take us through your thoughts on this? Is your first live Grateful Dead listening experience, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't you take us through your thoughts? You can touch on some songs or just say your piece.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really go through like everything track by track because I listened to this about a week ago, and
Okay.
I don't really have too good memory when it comes to live shows. Even with the King Gizzard live bootlegs, I don't have that much good memory unless there are like particular parts that really stood out to me. And for sure, there were some here in this Dead jam.
So what did you think about the Help Slip Frank, which was kind of more of the Blues for Allah side of things?
Oh, it's Blues for Allah, so it's definitely good. What can I say about that? I mean, there was definitely some nice grooving going on during Franklin's Tower. Of course, I have that bias but still, I feel like Lightning Bolt here definitely does a good job at the riff wise, and like I said, riff wise here, I think this was Lightning Bolt's best performance.
Nice.
For being able to maintain that groove, but still being a little bit laid back, kind of trying to go for the original vibes of the song, but more laid back now that it has a acoustic sound. Now, let's see.
Mhm.
Masterpiece definitely stood out. Definitely got my heart pumping. In a good way, though. Like, I definitely... I felt the lyrics just flowing through my head. And
Nice.
of course, it felt super romantic hearing that, strangely enough.
Do you know it's a Bob Dylan song?
Well, actually, now I know because of you. I was not aware when I heard it.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
I'm gonna see if I could try listening to the original when I can, but this was just something else. If it could make me feel romantic in a way,
Right.
then it had a profound impact of sorts in
Very
one
interesting.
way or another.
That's very on brand with Bob Dylan, though, is, to be able to use poetry to make you feel a certain way. So that's actually fascinating to me that one stuck out to you in a lyrical way.
Yeah, it still translates very well into Dead's own playing, I must say.
Yeah, so the Dead they did a lot of fan worship kind of thing to Dylan. Usually they played at least one of his songs every time they played, which is kind of an interesting aspect of the Grateful Dead.
That's actually pretty nice of them, if I do
Yeah.
say so myself. Dylan must have definitely gone to one of their shows at that point.
So yeah, like the band and Dylan definitely connected throughout both of their careers. They actually put an album out together, and they played live with each other. Yeah, but it was like a whole. I don't know. The band liked Dylan in a way that I don't think I could ever fully understand. Just in like a, I don't know, just kind of a reverence to him and like a respect and almost like I don't know. Nah, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of there is a bit of, he was their hero.
Right.
Even in the earliest Grateful Dead shows, they were throwing in "It's All Over Now, Baby Blue," which would have been a fairly new song in '65. I do think sometimes there is a sense of the same sort of deification that the fans show to Jerry, that the band themselves would show to Dylan. I don't think it's one to one like that or anything, but he was definitely their hero, and they were very much big fans of his music and his catalog, and vice versa. I mean, Dylan would write would write songs with Robert Hunter, and the Dead would, of course, back him on Silvio and other such songs. And he wanted to join the Dead at one point. Phil said no, and he was right too.
Hell yeah. An interesting thought about this show. Usually there's a couple. Well, there's only 2 covers. Usually I expect a little bit more covers in a Grateful Dead show. But okay, so what were your thoughts back to Do Roller on that Dark Star? So you kind of wanted to hear a Dark Star.
Sorry, I just want to clarify that there are 4 covers this evening.
Wait,
Minglewood, Masterpiece, Love Light, and I Fought the Law.
New Minglewood's a cover?
Yeah, it's an old blues tune.
Oh, well, but it's pretty redone by the Dead.
More like a standard of sorts, if anything. It's like Tiny Tim doing any song of his live, which is really just whatever.
And what was the other one?
Love Light.
Love Light,
yeah. That's Bobby Bland.
Okay.
Yeah, also kind of unrelated, but Tiny Tim also did do a jam band thing the same year that this show came out. So that's also a little bit of a funny thing that happened. I guess you could draw some parallels with that. But whatever. Going on to the actual show itself. We could talk about Tiny Tim later. Easy answers, lazy.
We have a Tiny Tim podcast that we can talk about Tiny Tim one.
Oh,
Tim time.
Oh, all right. In any case, Easy Answers and Lazy River Road, very nice bluesy tune, going for that similar sort of groove as Franklin's Tower. But again, I haven't really heard these tunes before on studio material, so I cannot say for myself my fullest thoughts on them. Now onto the Dark Star itself. This was super decent. The Dark Star itself is not really what I was looking forward for, but more so the actual drum jam, space jam thing that they did afterwards, which was super duper crazy. I already mentioned earlier pre-podcast that the drums on there sounded a lot like Pecking O by Can from their 1971 sophomore effort, Tagomago. It sounded like the band was just fucking around because that Knob noted that they were super tired, so I assumed they just wanted to fuck around with the drums so they could at least get a laugh out of it and get back into the groove for the next few songs afterwards.
Yeah.
And the beam, was it the beams? Little weird spacey sounds. Very much worth hearing. Definitely sounded a bit. Definitely felt a bit like Musik von Harmonia by the group Harmonia, the krautrock group Harmonia. It's definitely the same. Well, not similar, but Kosmish-esque sound effects going on right there with the electronics.
Cool. Oh, and you like the I Fought the Law.
Yeah. That one I felt like it felt like the Dead at their punkiest.
Yeah, it was punky.
Yeah, it's a classic proto-punk tune for sure.
Yeah, it really is. Like pop punk.
I never would have expected a band like the Dead to cover a song like that. I've heard the Clash cover of it before. It sounded much more fitting of them than the Dead, who are considerably more old school.
They do keep it pretty close to the Crickets arrangement. It's definitely in an older school feel than the Clash give it.
Wait,
but
are you
Buddy
sure?
Holly.
Sorry, are you sure it wasn't originally by the Bobby Fuller Five?
I believe it was Bobby Fuller fronting the Crickets.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Wow.
Or Sonny Curtis. Sorry, Sonny Curtis and the Crickets and the Bobby Fuller Four both did versions of it. I'm mixing up two versions. Sonny Curtis and the Crickets is the arrangement the Dead are doing.
Oh, okay. So that explains.
Okay. All right. So let us. Do any last thoughts on 9/22/93 before we go into our other little segments here?
Trying to think of some parallels that I could draw to between the drum space jam and other forms of music that I've heard before. That definitely calls back a little bit to what Eno was trying to fuck around with on those ambient albums, which we were invited on that podcast for. Yeah. Still trying to think. I guess a bit of a Steve Roach vibe, if you will. Haven't really heard too much of his stuff, but yeah, I guess it's there. And yeah, I guess you could. That could be it. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. Knob, would this make your Book of the Dead?
No.
That's a no. That's a no for me. And I don't think Dew has listened to enough Books of the Dead to make that kind of decision or opinion. But what I would like the wonderful fans out there, now that we know a little bit about Dew Roller's background and what he likes and what his influences are, if you could write in with some shows that you think would be of interest to do roller, that'd be great. You can get with us at you just email us at helponthewaypod@gmail.com. And I'll get those over to do roller. It'd be cool if you could listen to those and let us know your thoughts too. Okay, so this is this is not one of our books of the dead. So we will be picking a set to feature. I will say that we should probably feature set 2.
I think so.
Okay.
I think it's the more interesting set.
What are your thoughts about which, so after we're done speaking, we usually put on a set for the fans to listen to. Which of the 2 sets would you think that we should listen to?
Me?
Yeah. First set or second set? Like,
Well,
which set kind of stuck out to you more?
Well, the first set, of course, it has the Blues for Allah material, but the second set stands out considerably more because of the experimental drum space jam. That's really where it's at. And let me check. It doesn't have the Bob Dylan cover, but still, it has the fucking jam. What can you not say about it?
All right. Well, emphatically, at the end of this, the speaking portion of the podcast, you'll be listening to set 2 of September 22nd, 1993. The last little segment we want to do is talk about our favorite player. I know Dew doesn't know all their names, but like, which instruments would you say stuck out to you the best, or like, who was the best player in your mind?
Well, the Beam definitely did a good job during the Space Jam right there.
Yeah.
There will be no commoning and slamming. Well, okay, I can't believe I made a reference to a basketball movie. Whatever. The Beam, absolutely great job.
All right.
On that Space Jam. Super nice ambient prog electronic textures. And Jerry's guitar, Lightning Bolt, did a great job for the most part. I'd say Lightning Bolt did a great job on this entire jam when it came to just preserving the vibes of the earlier those earlier songs in the set. It was considerably more bluesy. The Blues for Allah material was super good, and the Bob Dylan cover, like I said, absolutely great rendition they did there.
Yeah.
So I'd say Jerry was, I think, the best player in general for the night.
Okay. And that's what we find this segment is really about. Knob, your thoughts?
Excellent question.
It is a good question. I'm having a hard time this week.
I don't know. I'm going with David Murray. I think that this show is as good as it is because of what David Murray brings to it. The show is good before he arrives, but I do think he brings a new energy and elevates nearly every song he plays on.
Oh man, I completely disagree. I thought that he went for squealy sax before anything interesting, and he overused it and to not great effect. I did not like. I mean, usually, when guests sit in, it's always hit or miss. I thought this was a miss.
Okay.
But who was my favorite player? I don't know. This is a tough one. I think Jerry made some poor decisions throughout the night. I think Phil was just in it for Phil. I think Bobby was tired. So I'm going to go with the Rhythm Devils because that's kind of where we're at. And I don't want to say Vince either because I wasn't really convinced tonight either.
It wasn't really. Vince didn't really have too many moments to wow.
Yeah, he really didn't. There wasn't.
He had a
He was
couple
kind
of
of
jams
also
he
ran.
on.
Yeah, I mean he kind of was filler. Like he thickened the soup.
Yes,
that's it.
Absolutely.
All right, Reddit comments. We have none, so I will take us to our next show, which is a biggie. This is back to 1974 at the Cow Palace in Daly City, California. This is March 23rd, 1974. A day later, 2 days later, they would begin recording the Mars Hotel album. So we have our first Scarlet, Begonias, the first Cassidy, and this is the sound test for the Wall of Sound. This is Dick's Picks 24. This is a biggie. I'm looking forward to sinking my teeth into this one. Any thoughts, Knob?
Yeah, it's going to be really good. This is a great show.
Heck yeah.
Definitely, this is one I've heard before. I'm a fan of. I've been reading through Brian Anderson's Wall of Sound book, so this is going to be a fun companion to that. Yeah, I'm very excited.
Hell yeah. All right. If y'all like what we're doing, please smash that subscribe button. Gotta smash it. Like and share with all your Grateful Dead loving family and friends. You can find us wherever podcasts are downloaded, but not Spotify. You can follow us at our website, which is helponthewaypod.podbean.com, or you can email us, like I said, at helponthewaypod@gmail.com. I'll say that again, helponthewaypod@gmail.com. And let us know if you have any hints for other shows that Do Roller might like. You can find us on YouTube. It's youtube.com/@helponthewaypod. And we're also on Blue Sky. Just search us out. Dude, thank you so much for being our guest tonight. I thought this was a really interesting conversation. It's always good to have different voices, and especially voices from, other realms of expertise.
It's a pleasure.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I'm glad we could do this. Knob, any parting words?
Yes, I think that the Type 2 jams that Tiny Tim was getting into in like 96 are probably deeper to me than the 93 jams.
Oh my god, there's no way you are saying this. Are you sure?
We're gonna fight about this so hard as soon as this recording's over.
All right, break it up, you two. You guys can start your own Tiny Tim podcast.
He does on Scarlet Begonias.
Tiptoe Through the Tulips will never be better than 1993.
Red Rocks 96.
All right, for myself, Fig, for my co-host Knob, for Game Who Couldn't Be Here, and for Do Roller, we want you to stay tuned for set 2 of September 22nd, 1993 at Madison Square Garden. And we want to thank you for listening to another episode of the Help on the Way podcast.
way down, down along the lazy river road. Thread the needle right to the eye, thread that right so true. All the others I let pass by, I wanted you. Never cared much for careless love. Oh, I am proud to way down, down along lazy river road. Way down, down along lazy river road. Way down, down along lazy river road. So long I felt this way, trying to know how you know. Rainbows in down that highway, where ocean breezes blow. My tongue took voices say, and you tell me where to go. fight before we burn. You will fall. We'll rise up to glory. Glory. And I'll come after these people say, my word fills the sky with flame. Might glory gonna be my name. And they gonna learn my way. Still I know I lead the way. The voices tell me son, don't worry about it. No, no, don't worry about it. I ain't doing no rush. No, no, 'cause I know where to go. Don't worry about it. No, no, don't worry about it. No. I ain't doing no rush. No, no, 'cause I know. Everyone say come to me, I know I would believe them. Half of my life I spend good time for some other fucker's grand. The other half found me stumbling around on the burgundy wine. But I get back. Oh my said to him, I'm sure she's been. I said to him, I'm sure she's been chilling you. Got up and wandered. Wandered downtown, nowhere to go but just to hell. I've got a girl. Hey, Money Lee, I know that girl's been true. I know she's been, sure she's been true to me. Picture a bright blue ball dispensed full of hope. Peaceful place and overlooks from space. Closer look reveals the human race. Full of hope, full of graces in human face. But afraid, we may let our homes in. There's a few down here we can't forget. Hasn't gone just yet. Always awake, always around. Singing ashes, ashes all falling out. Watching the ball revolve in the nighttime falls. And again the hunt begins, and again the blood wind calls. Again the momentum will rise. Never goes from some men's eyes. But I know the stroke of song walks in and rolls the streets. Sticking a turn, fighting up. Nightmare spook, piece of guess who gets to pay the price? Singing funny games, it's the only way. Sell them guns, rape the earth today. So the kids, they dance and shake their bones. The politicians, throwing stones, singing ashes, ashes off the wall dancing. Try to tell us what to think. If the spirit's sleeping and the flesh is ink, yeah, this is paid. We'll be neatly carved stone. Future's here. We are it. We are on our own. On our own. We are on our own. We are on our own. this place and hit the stone. Where that shiny log we can call our home. So the kids, they try to shake their bones. Politicians throwing stones, singing ashes, ashes off. Oh, now. Without a warning, you stole my heart. Taking it back, tore it apart. Left me standing in the corner crying. Told me your love was slowly dying. So baby, baby, please. Begging you, baby, I'm on my knees. Turn on your light, let it shine on me. Turn on your love light, let it shine on me. Let it shine, let it shine. we want to thank Mr. David Murray and Mr. James Cook for joining us tonight. Thank you all, and good night.